Hi guys, welcome to tonight's live chat. How you guys doing? I see a lot of you signed in. Good to see you guys. I'm looking at Live Life, MS, Ellie Wynn, and Pulsar, and Lil Johan. Hello and welcome to all of you. I'm so glad to see you. I also see some people who had been waiting for me since 7:30. Pink Meadows, it's really good to see you. Welcome tonight. Sigma Praxis Synergy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's so humbling and awesome. Thank you. So glad to see you tonight. I also see AMB, Coral Sky, Nancy R, and my friend Shmita. Hello and welcome. So glad to have you guys in tonight's live chat. Lorfit, Sun Farrar, hello and welcome to the both of you. You guys know how I do this. I'm going to welcome you once we get into some of the meat of this. Keith B, hello and welcome. Sun and Sunflowers, it's good to see you as well. I will come back to you guys a little bit later in just a little bit, but I do want to jump into some of the meat. I'm sorry I was late tonight. Literally got held up with my family. We were doing some gardening. And I was with my youngest brother, and tell me I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm gonna tease Ryan here. That's my brother. He is so slow. Okay, my oldest brother, he's like, and my youngest brother is so slow. So we were putting some added touches to the backyard, and I asked him, "Could you help me move this tree, the little like arborvitae tree?" And, he's got to huff and puff. He's got to find his gloves. He has to go get a dolly. I'm like, come on, let's just grab this thing up and get it out of the way, And he's such a turtle. Can you guys relate to that? Do you have a sibling where you're just like, why does life move so slow for you? Let's get this show on the road. You know what I mean? So that is why I am late. I got stuck with him in a ball cap and some boots. And I really look like a construction worker. So you know how that goes, guys. So I want to jump into the topic here now. This is an interesting conversation because I tend to see this a lot. I see this so much in my practice, not as much as I used to, but it's still very sad for me to see an adult child, a child or an adolescent who has a parent who is not only emotionally immature, but they are also emotionally unavailable. And those are two different things. Sometimes people think that those are the same thing, and it's not. It's not. Those are different things. An emotionally unavailable parent is an individual who doesn't allow themselves to be available to you. They are unreachable. Their body may be there. They may they may appear to be listening. They may be giving you eye contact, but they are absent. They are unavailable. We call that a vulnerability discomfort. A vulnerability discomfort. And really what that means is you have a hard time being comfortable with vulnerability. And so if that means I have something to share with you, if that means I have something to talk about, that means if I have a problem, if I need your advice, if I need your wisdom, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to ask you for help. But mom or dad is going to be emotionally unavailable. They're there. Their shell is there, but they are emotionally unavailable. So we call that a vulnerability discomfort. Now, guys, hold on. I hit the wrong button. Bear with me. There we go. Okay. And so that's a very difficult dynamic there. When a person who is supposed to be a leader, they tend to be so unavailable that you don't even know what it's like to experience their love and their warmth or any kind of warmth, right? That's parental. You may also not understand for many years why you just completely avoid telling them anything. Your parents, mom or dad, telling them anything, sharing anything with them that's going on, whether that's good or bad. I have some clients now who have emotionally unavailable parents, and they absolutely refuse to tell them even the good stuff. I used to, as a young, inexperienced clinician, I used to think, Why would you not want to tell them the good stuff? And it wasn't until 12 years later, where I am now in my profession, which is way more seasoned, I now understand that any kind of emotion, whether it's good or bad, will not be correctly or in a healthy fashion talked about or experienced with the emotionally unavailable parent. Because you can go to that emotionally unavailable parent and say, I'm engaged, I'm getting married, we're so happy, and this, that, the other. And your emotionally unavailable mother, may say, okay, and what do you want me to say about it? Good for you. Glad you're doing that. You still owe me money from 12 years ago, right? That's one way. Or you may say, I got accepted. I got accepted into Princeton. Can you believe that, Dad? I got accepted. And I'm going to become a medical doctor. So I'm a pre-med student there. And, I hope you could just be happy for me. And your dad may say, why do I need to be happy for you? I told you shouldn't go into the medical field. They don't pay enough. And your sister wanted to become a medical doctor. How dare you go and get into the field that she's interested in? That is a typical response of an emotionally unavailable, parent. There is no happiness when it's happy. There is no praise when you should be praised. And on that same spectrum of instability, of emotionally unstable reactions to things, there's also the parent who's emotionally immature. So there may be some jealousy in there. There may be some judgments in there, really, really high expectations, which can come off as good. I'm glad you got into Harvard because your cousin went to Stanford, that kind of thing. So there may be some one-upping that you notice as well. These kind of unstable parents are not textbook parents. Can you believe that? In the field of psychology, these parents are not textbook parents. They're not. They may have an attachment style that's textbook. They may have a personality disorder that's textbook. They may have, anger and hostility that's textbook based. But their pattern of being an immature and emotionally unavailable parent is not textbook. So you really have to have that clinical experience, that personal experience, that close experience to a situation that will help you identify who these unstable parents are. They tend to withhold a lot of comfort to control. They withhold comfort to control. I'm not going to give you my love and affection. I'm going to hold that back here because you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it at all. And I don't want to give that to you. Giving you love and affection and comfort is like taking their energy. Did you know that? Giving love and affection to you as the deserving, I'm stuttering there, deserving adult child, the deserving child, the deserving adolescent, giving that to you is like taking their energy. They don't want to do it and they're not going to do it. You may actually have become way more aware of their issues and faults than they are. Over time, you may have become very aware and very reflective of their issues and their problems more than they are. Isn't that difficult? So very difficult. It is depressing. Sometimes I will have kids come into therapy, and as soon as I'm done engaging the parents, getting to know what the dynamic of the family is, setting some treatment goals and a treatment plan, giving them this is the way we're probably going to go in therapy. Sit in the waiting room. We've already had 5 sessions with you. I can take the kid from here. What the kid will say to me is, if they have an emotionally unavailable parent, Miss Tamara, I wish you were you. I wish you were my mom. And I'll look at them and I'll say, you do? Well, firstly, thank you. I take that as a compliment. But the way that I observe mom and dad is that you seem to have a really good mom and dad. So why are we feeling that way? And they'll say, I don't know. And I'll say, no, I think you know. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And anything you say to me is not going to get back to your mom and dad. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm always going to come to you and say, you know what? I think we need to talk to mom and dad. Let's agree to talk to mom and dad. And if it's a safety issue, then I'm going to have to make that decision on my own. But tell me what's going on. Why do you wish I was your mom? And then the kid will open up and say, well, mom's always on her cell phone. And I think she's having an affair on dad. And I'll say, okay, that's pretty worrisome. Yeah, it is, Miss Tamara. And then they'll go on and they'll say, my mom never spends any time with me. She's always drinking or hanging out with her friends or playing poker or bingo or something. She's never home. And my dad works 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every night. And he's never home either. Nobody loves me. That is an open door. And then that's when I say, something's really going on here. This is not a child that doesn't dislike the parent. This is an emotionally, psychologically, I was gonna say another word, but I think I'll give it this word: emotionally and psychologically desperate child. This is a child who is desperate for love, and they find within the therapist all the attributes that they want mom and dad. You know, that is scary, right? And so what I learned over time with these kind of kiddos in therapy is that they are way more aware of the parents' issues than the parents. And sometimes the parents will come in like, I don't know why they're struggling. And then 2 or 3 sessions in, I know exactly why they're struggling, you know? And sometimes it's the narcissistic parent. Sometimes it's the psychopath parent who's just really cold and callous and doesn't have any empathy and tends to be consistently cold and hot. The child doesn't know whether they are loved or hated. That's a scary place to be, right? And as they grow up throughout the lifespan or throughout their young development, there's this deep-seated message that's being played to them about who they are in comparison to the emotionally immature parent. And what that message is telling them is you are not worth the love and affection of a parent. You're never going to get it. So you either seek it out in the wrong men, the wrong women, the wrong relationship dynamics, or you go throughout the rest of your life avoidant. And sometimes that's exactly what happens. And it's a very sad reality. Research in psychology suggests this, and I also see this with some of the kids that see me for therapy, that with emotionally immature parents, there's an emotional reactivity. Emotional reactivity. And the emotional reactivity is really striking. Why? Because it's intense, it's impulsive, it's angry. The parent has extreme outbursts. They may engage in threats to you, to others, and they tend to operate on fear. So when you show them fear, or they fear, or they see that somebody else fears them, it kind of gives them a little bit of power. And if you're dealing with a psychopath of a parent or a narcissist, you're helping to build their emotional voids by being afraid and by wanting their love and they're not giving it to you. They tend to be very hostile sometimes. Their emotional reactivity is like that of a child. You know how an infant is? They're so sensitive to the world around them. You don't want to slam things. You don't want to argue around the baby. You don't want to, have something loud going off like a smoke detector or fire alarm. Really loud police vehicles. You want none of that loudness around the baby. Why? Because it destabilizes them and it upsets them. And it's not just a stress response that can come from that upset. There's a physiological response that goes with that as well. And so the body shifts, right? Fight or flight mode gets kicked on. The fear response kicks in. The brain says, woo, time to be defensive. And so all of that has a chemical impact on the baby, whether they are born or not. And so the emotional reactivity of an immature parent can destabilize you over time. Screaming, yelling, threats, cursing, profanity, disregard for your rights, not caring that you're afraid. Now, this is if you're younger, but older, as an adult child, you may still kind of shake and have a hard time just feeling calm around a parent who's constantly intense, impulsive, hostile and angry, extreme outbursts, writes really long emails and text messages, loves to argue, scream and yell, slams doors, the list goes on. It destabilizes you. Why? Because they have a very weak emotional ability to interact in a way that's healthy. They are devoid of the proper emotion regulation skills that they need to be the right parent. And so they are very much like an infant in the sense that their emotional reactivity is instant. And then that often leads to intense, impulsive hostility. And you may not even recognize your parent because they're in this mode. It's an ugly mode. And sometimes if the parent is very, very unstable, so if we're talking about somebody with a personality pathology, somebody with a personality disorder, somebody that has a disordered character, now we're talking about a parent who doesn't have the capacity to be what they need to be, period. It's not in their repertoire of behaviors. It's not in their repertoire of behaviors. And I'm repeating it because it's important to understand. If we're dealing with a character pathology, we are not dealing necessarily with a skills deficit, meaning that there are parents who just need to figure out how to be parents. There's parents who need to figure out how to treat their adult children like they're adult children. There's parents who need skills on how to communicate and engage. But when we're talking about the parents we're talking about in tonight's live chat, guys, we're talking about a parent who has a character pathology that doesn't allow them to be the kind of parent that you need them to be. It's not just a skills deficit. They're not just lacking skills on how to be a parent. They don't have the emotional and psychological, board or repertoire of behaviors that is needed to figure out which behavior should I show in this situation? What response does my adult child need from me? That one or that one? Is this a time where they need my love and affection the most? They don't have the capability to do that. Now, what's interesting is when you're thinking about an emotionally unavailable parent, you want to think of a parent who has a poverty of emotion and a poverty of speech. You go to this parent, you confide in them, you tell them everything that you feel that you need to tell them. You're hoping that they come back at you with a wise response or some kind of direction or some kind of, wisdom to give your heart so you don't feel so upset and so all alone and so confused. And all you get in return is nada. You get absolutely nothing. Why? Because there's a poverty of emotion and a poverty of speech. They have nothing to say to you and they have nothing to give you emotionally. So it's like you're sitting there and talking to a shell of a parent because that's all that's there. There's nothing in their heart, nothing in their mind, nothing in their soul. They have nothing to give you. They basically avoid the parental role at all costs. They avoid the parental role at all costs. You're not going to put them in a parental role. That's a role they don't want. So they're going to avoid that. Even if that means poverty of emotion, poverty of speech. I have nothing to give you. That's a scary thing, right? They never prioritize you. That's another thing. You're not a priority. Maybe the girlfriend or the boyfriend is the priority. Maybe that job they want is the priority. Maybe that social status is the priority. Right? Maybe that reputation is the priority. You're way at the bottom, if at the bottom at all. And that is emotionally unavailable. They are closed completely off, restricted, reserved. You get nothing. It's like trying to get water out of a rock. They aren't there, period. And that is the scary reality, right? What I like to refer to as emotionally unavailable and immature is a parent who really has a consistent absence of emotional presence and of responsiveness that is appropriate in the parental role. I'm going to go back over that. Usually when I'm talking to my families, I'll explain, you've got an emotionally unavailable parent, and here's what it looks like. It's a consistent absence of emotional presence, a consistent absence of emotional presence and responsiveness that is appropriate for that parental role. Gone. They're nowhere inside. When I go to my mom for anything, thankfully I haven't recently, off and on for some of my medical health issues that I'm going through right now, cardio issues, cardiac issues, gastrointestinal issues, the list just goes on, terrible fatigue. When I go to my mom, I'm a big girl. And I can handle myself. But there are times when I need to hear my mom's wisdom. And so I'll go to my mom and I'll say, Mom, I'm just tired. I don't feel good. I want to do things, and I'm a fighter. So I push and I keep going and I get things done. You wouldn't even think I have health conditions, and I'm healthy. I eat well, I exercise, the list goes on. And my mom will say, you have a very stressful career. Don't forget, that takes a big chunk of your energy right there. And as a matter of fact, it's probably the cause of some of your health conditions. And I sit there and I'm like, bing, yeah, she's right. And then I realized, what was I thinking all this time? She's right. I just need to hear her voice, just need to hear her wisdom. And it clicks. Somebody else could say it to me and I'm like, yeah. Mom says it, bing. And so that's a blessing. Not everybody has that, right? We know that on this channel. That's a relief to my heart when I have somebody else who gets me, who birthed me, and who says, don't forget this side of things. Do things this way. I strongly suggest you do it this way. You do what you feel is good, but here's what I would do in your shoes. All of that is motherly, parental. That's love, right? That's wisdom and compassion, maturity. An emotionally unavailable and an immature parent doesn't have that. Their cognitive framework. I'm going to get to the chat box in a little bit. Thank you, Donna Lee. I just saw what you said. Donna Lee says, you're blessed with your mother. Yes, thank you so much for that. What's interesting, just a little side note, what's interesting is although my siblings and I, my mom, we totally loved my great-grandmother. Before my great-grandmother became a mature mother and grandmother, she was struggling with alcoholism. She was really immature in a lot of ways. She was a fighter too. Like, I totally admire what my grandmother left behind in her family. But my mother and my grandmother didn't get along for many years. Thankfully, that changed, as they got older. But they didn't get along. So my mother didn't have a mother like the mother that she is to me. Isn't that interesting? So Donna Lee, thank you for that. That is a blessing, and I'm so grateful for that. But I'm also painfully aware that not everybody has family members like that, or parents, right? And so it kind of leaves your heart empty. It leaves your heart empty. The cognitive framework of an immature, unavailable parent, the cognitive framework tends to be negative, tends to be self-centered. Everything is for me. I want that happiness for me. I want that peace of mind for me. Oh, I want that job. I want that marriage. I want that boyfriend. I still want to party. I still want to get high. And the child, way over there, emotionally unavailable. Their cognitive framework is black and white. It's polarized, right? There's no gray. There's no in between, meaning that this may be a parent who doesn't seem to understand. Being a parent isn't a curse. Not always. Sometimes it feels like it if you have children that are not, well behaved, or they've really drug you through the mud, right? But these kind of parents don't see a good side to being parents. Maybe mom got pregnant and she didn't realize she was pregnant until later and couldn't abort the baby, right? Maybe she, I don't know, slept with so many guys that she can't figure out who's the father. And so she's kind of thrown you into that pile of I don't really care, right? Or maybe she never really wanted to be a parent, or she wanted to be a parent, but only to a baby. And when you hit the age of 11, 12, 13, 14 and up, she lost interest because you're no longer that cute little baby that cries and has cute little, behaviors and, chubby cheeks, and the list goes on. Like, we don't know why some parents say, you know what, I'm out of this game. You go over there, make a life for yourself. What I've seen clinically is, again, sometimes these parents want to be parents until they realize what it's all about. Some parents want to be parents until that child hits an older age and they are no longer a fluffy, beautiful, lovable baby. Some parents accidentally brought a child into this world and didn't have the options to abort, right? And these are the kind of parents that are just so unavailable. They have an empathy deficit. That's really what it is. It's a condition, in a sense. I don't have what it takes to give you what you want, and I absolutely don't care how you feel. Years ago when I worked in a residential treatment facility, I shared some of this yesterday. I had a coworker. He and I, we kind of ran the unit. And anytime a parent would come in, the first thing we would look for is the dedication of the parent. We want to know, are you dropping this kid off in residential treatment setting, in a setting like this, to get rid of them? Because in a residential treatment facility, what happens is the parent brings the child in, the parent signs the child in, the child cannot sign out without an adult present, and they are stuck on that campus getting treatment for 6 months, 12 months, or even 18 months. It really just depends on what the needs are. And so during that process, therapists are there and they're observing and reading the family. And so a lot of times my colleague and I, we would just be watching and observing. Why? Because we need to know, are you putting your kid here because you love them and there's no other options? Or are you putting your kid here and you're happy that they're gone? Many times I got those loving families who just didn't have any other options left. Therapy wasn't working, medication wasn't working, and all they knew to do was kind of sign their child up for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months of treatment, nonstop, around the clock, 24/7. And that's wonderful. But every once in a while, I would get that parent that had an empathy deficit, and they would sign their child into the residential program. And when I would call for therapy sessions, parent would be unavailable. I would leave multiple messages on their voicemail. Parent wouldn't get back to me until several days later. Mailed out some information in a letter that if they do not show their presence, their child's treatment would be unfortunately terminated, and they will be handed over to Child Protective Services, and the state would have to become the parent. Then that's when I would get a phone call back. And then it would happen again. It was the same cycle, And again, it's emotional avoidance. I don't want to be the parent. And so that's kind of where they go. When you have an empathy deficit, or you don't have the ability to think about the other person, which would be you as the child, we also call that theory of mind. And it's a neurological piece of the brain that is supposed to kind of decode empathy for us. It helps us to look at somebody else and say, you know what, this is what I would feel, I would do. This is how they feel. A parent who has an empathy deficit does not have the capability to do that. One last thing is that these kind of parents, before I go to the chat box, these kind of parents, they really do have inconsistent affection and expectations. Inconsistent affection and expectations. You can never meet them where they are. You can never meet their expectations. You can never get what it is that you need from them because their affection is inconsistent. Maybe your mom is going to act like she's so invested in your life because you are now pregnant. This is a new marriage. You're in a new relationship. You're moving across the nation to another house somewhere else or home. And maybe mom is right there with you. But once that moment is over, they're back to not answering their phone calls, not answering their texts, not replying to your emails. It's like they have completely gone off somewhere and just disappeared. So research in psychology suggests that if you have an emotionally unavailable or immature parent, keep in mind that they have a lot of ways about themselves that's unstable, and it can lead to inconsistent affection and expectations. And so then you're caught in this cycle, right? You're caught in what's called the abuse cycle, in a sense. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's a cycle of togetherness, love, and affection. And then as the relationship continues, you start seeing, she's getting a little bit distant. Dad's getting a little bit distant. They're not being close anymore. They're not calling me. They're not engaging, right? Then you start getting upset, or you start feeling hurt. And then you start kind of internalizing that. Well, what is it about me? Did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Did I offend my mom or dad? What am I doing wrong, right? And so all of that is building up tension between you and your parent, right? And then maybe for whatever reason, mom will reach out and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I've just been so busy. I've had so many things to do. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Oh, I've always been like this. When I am deep into something, it's hard for me to just come out of it. So I'm sorry I was absent for a little while. Tell me about your life. What's going on? And mom may be the best mom ever for a short period of time. But guess what? That cycle is going to happen again. So in tonight's live chat, we've already covered so much. I'm going to go ahead and give you common issues with these parents. Then I'm going to go to the chat box and engage you. I'll give you the final pieces of this, and then we'll wrap up. So let's do the common issues. Okay. Then I'll go to the chat box. Here's what research in psychology says. And I also see this clinically. Parents like this, they tend to see you as an inconvenience. You're a total inconvenience. I don't want you in my world. You're making life hard on me. I don't want to deal with your disabilities. You're making life hard on me. I don't want to deal with your arguments and, putting me into corners where I have to prove myself. So you're an inconvenience, automatically an inconvenience to these kind of parents. You are going to come secondary to their needs. You're secondary. Their needs, number one, a man, a woman, dating life, partying, getting drunk or high, vacations, business trips, whatever. We can go down a whole list, right? That is first. You are second nature. You are second nature. They have a strong need for validation. And here's what happens. These kind of immature, unavailable parents, they have a void. And it's not just an empathy deficit. It's not. Sometimes it's also an emotional deficit. They never got what they needed from their parents. Maybe they never got what they need in emotional relationships with other people. So what do? They flip the script. You become the therapist. You become the soundboard. You become the parent. Why? Because you have what it is that they need in the moment, right? So, it's a sad thing, but they do have a strong need for validation. And sometimes they'll lean on you as the adult child to give them that validation. They tend to be very defensive sometimes. You're not going to tell me I'm a bad mother. I'm not a bad mother. You're not going to tell me I'm a bad father. I'm not a bad father. How dare you? I've bought things for you. I've clothed you. I've fed you. I've done everything for your basic needs. I think I'm a pretty good parent. And then there you are standing there thinking, why in the world do I feel so guilty? Right? They are emotionally isolating. They isolate. They don't want the responsibility of being a parent, so they isolate. Remember, their cognitive framework is negative. Being a parent is a big burden. It's a big burden. They are rigid, controlling, and neurotic. Sometimes they are rigid, controlling, and neurotic. Neurotic means there's a low level of anxiety and they're just popping all over the place. They don't know how to be calm, cool, collected, grounded. They're just kind of all over the place, They're They're controlling and dominating sometimes too. I've seen that. And they're very rigid, very, very rigid. Everything has to go A, B, and C. We can't do it. We can't just look at A and then look at C. B has to come in there somewhere. A, B, C. It has to be 1, 2, 3. Nothing can get in the way. Everything has to be so. And that kind of a rigid person is really hard to get love from sometimes. Really hard to get love from sometimes. We may talk about obsessive compulsive personality disorder at some point, which is kind of like this rigidity, this neuroticism, this control and need for control. There's always the abuse cycle that's involved with these kind of parents. We're going to go over that in just a minute after I go to the chat box. They really have overly high expectations of you, of life, of people connected to them. They feel like if you don't meet my expectations, you're a problem. So their expectations are way up here and you better meet them. Don't come close, meet them or you're going to be ousted. It's a very sad way that they are. A very, very sad way that they are. And one last thing in this category before I go to the chat box is this. They may have never wanted you. And that is a painful end, right? One time in a therapy session, I'm going to say this was about 3.5 years ago. I was sitting in a session with a family and we were inching up on the end of the session. I remember it being 9:02. I said, we're 2 minutes over time, so we're going to have to wrap this up. And the dad said, okay. And he sat on the end of the edge of the couch, and he says, can I just make a confession as to why I'm such a bad dad? And I said, okay, yeah, sure, go ahead. And his son, who was 20, his daughter, who was 22, and then his stepson, who was 25. So he had 3 of his kids there. It was a family session. And he sat on the end of the couch and he said, I'm learning how to be a better dad every day because for the years that you guys have been born, I haven't really cared about you, and you should know why. And the kids are just sitting there like, should we be paranoid? What is going on here? Should we be concerned? And dad says to them, I never wanted you. I never wanted you. I never wanted you. I never wanted you. And I never wanted you. And I have to be honest with you because that's the kind of dad I am. He says, I'm learning every day to be a better dad. But the reason I've been absent is I've never wanted you. It was your mother who wanted you. So he put it on the mom. He says, but I never wanted you. I begged her to get an abortion. Oh, my heart sank for those kids. And they're young adults, but my God, to me, they're like kids, And I never forgot that session. And from that point on, I did therapy with the 3 of them, and I left dad out of the equation because he's a little bit emotionally abusive. But sometimes they don't want you, and they'll let you know that. So, guys, let me go to the chat box, engage you a little bit, and then we'll get to the end of this, which is what's the impact of having these kind of parents in your life? Okay, so we'll get to that. Tara M, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Tara M says, that's horrible. Yes, it is. And, I try to be the kind of therapist that doesn't cry in sessions. But when he said that, tear down my face. They're beautiful kids. I didn't understand him. Carl Mullen, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Carl Mullen says he begged for an abortion 3 times. Yep. Consider this. He was a kind of father that traveled. He traveled the world. He was in the army. Then he came from the army and he became some kind of CEO of a corporation. Then that took him to another position as the CEO over Marriott Hotel for many years. He did a lot of traveling for his work, and he just didn't make time for his children. And he didn't want to have the burden of being a father because he was a businessman, And if you ask me, slightly narcissistic. And so, of course, he did not want them as his children. He didn't want that kind of thing holding him down. So, yeah, it's a shame when you beg for somebody to get an abortion. It says a lot about the father, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I had to get consultation from colleagues on that case for many, many weeks because it was quite a situation. Nancy R, I think I said hello to you. Welcome. Nancy R says they didn't want me. Seemed like everyone. It was hard to learn that I was not worthless. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? Because you kind of internalize that. Oh, you didn't want me? Can you imagine your dad saying to you, I never wanted you? What? Like, what piece of your mind thinks that's okay? Only a narcissist would think that that's okay to say. Yeah. It's awful. Jeremy Robinson, it's good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Whoops, there you are, talking to the good glow. All right, let me go back just a little bit here and get those of you who I haven't been able to see. Okay. Tammy Nicely, hello and welcome, my friend. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Kyra Knows 14 4K. It's always good to see you in the chat. Glad you're here. MR Brooks, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. I like that. Mr. Brooks says, trying to straighten out my mind. Yeah, there you go. I love it. Fairy Girl, it's always good to see you with the dabs. Welcome, welcome. Keith B says, with my mom's side of the family and slowness, changing a light bulb is an all-day event. I'm sure. It's like, get up on the ladder and change. Sorry, guys, we're going back to the very beginning when I said my brother's slow as molasses. You just get up on the ladder and, I'm a fast worker, okay? I don't know if you would call that competent or what, but if I see something, I tackle it within a couple minutes and we're done. On to the next thing. My brother, okay, it takes him a whole couple of seconds to figure out if he's going to do what he's supposed to do. Then when he decides he's going to do it, then it takes him another 2 hours to figure out how to do it, right? And then it takes him another 4 or 5 hours to figure out when to do it. It is so aggravating. I feel like I need a therapist just to deal with him. Christina Smith, it's good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. You guys know I'm joking, right? He is slow as molasses, though. That is honestly the truth. Elizabeth B, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Yes, Elizabeth B, I see what you're saying. Yep, I believe so. I agree. Okay. Scorpio Bird, hello and welcome. There you are. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Welcome back. Scorpio Bird says, my mom is unavailable and immature. Such a painful relationship. I always thought it was my fault. Absolutely. Absolutely. You internalize how they treat you. You internalize how they see you. A parent has control over their child, adult child, adolescent, just by how they react to them. A child is so conditioned to look for mom, to look for dad, to look for the love of a mom, the love of a dad, that the child is standing there looking, wanting that parent to want them, right? And to show them things and to guide them and give them wisdom. And the parent just completely says, I don't really care about you. And it disrupts their development, their mind, their emotions. It can become a traumatic situation for many years, causing complex PTSD. It's just such a sad reality. It is. I just hate that sometimes those parents have children. Fifi LaFleur, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. I'm sorry that you can relate to this. Hopefully it's validating to you and everyone on the channel that these things do exist, and you certainly are not alone. Certainly are not alone. It's just a lot of therapists either aren't trained to look at this, don't know what to look for, is highly influenced by society, that all parents are good, or they just don't talk about what they see in the therapy room. So you never really know if your therapist is going to understand you. So thankfully there are channels on YouTube that say, you know what, this exists and you're not alone. You know what I mean? I'm really glad about that. All right, let me keep moving, guys. Ghazi HT, hello and welcome to the channel. It's so good to see you. Welcome and thank you so much for that. I'm happy that you're sharing this. Thank you. Hopefully it can touch other people, right? Axe to Edge, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. I think I said hello to you. I'm really not sure. Fifi, so I don't want to leave you out, Axe to Edge. Fifi LaFleur says, my family refused to attend my wedding. We paid for it ourselves and they refused to attend. Even my grandparents wouldn't attend. Ugh, that's a rough one, right? Because obviously they weren't in favor of something. And if I get those things in my office, I always tell the adult child, try to see it from their perspective or move ahead and do what you need to do. Do what you want to do. And then let bygones be bygones. If you can, that is hard too sometimes. Sometimes it isn't until that first baby is brought into the family dynamic that everything kind of changes, So Fairy Girl says, so very difficult. Yes, it is. I agree. Lori, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Lori says, my whole life has been extremely difficult, from immature parents to alcoholism, abuse, neglect, and repeating these patterns and all relationships. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's exhausting, right? It's exhausting. Live Life says, I remember when I realized my mom was emotionally immature. It was both disheartening and liberating on one hand. On one hand, I could see how she was buried beneath her own limits. Right. That's a good way to put that. Yep. Yet realized I had outgrown them. Yeah, totally get that. I'm going to star that comment in the chat box. Totally get that. Yeah. I like how you put that, Live Life. You said, I could see how she was buried beneath her own limits. So true. So true. Yeah, that's so true. Most emotionally immature and unavailable parents are buried beneath their limits. They don't have what it takes. Remember earlier, I said there's an empathy deficit. There's a vulnerability discomfort. And there's a piece of the puzzle where you may see their issues far beyond what they can see. You can see it. They can't get it. So that's a very, very good way to put that. Donna Lee says, I wish you were my mom. Such a compliment, isn't it? It's so sweet. It's so sweet. And those kiddos touch my heart when they say those things. But then there's another piece of that, because now I've got to try to figure out, in a way that is kind of hidden, because I want the child to feel comfortable. And I want them to feel like I'm not psychoanalyzing them every time they come into the office. But now I have the task of trying to figure out, why do they feel that way? Because if they had the love and affection like they needed at home, they wouldn't have to say, I wish you were my mom, right? Like that just wouldn't be a thought. I loved my mom so much growing up that I didn't have room in my heart and mind to think or say, I wish you were my mom. No, I don't want you to be my mom, because I have a good mom, And so that just screams alert to me when it happens, Sean Hammer, hello and welcome. It's good to see you, my friend. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Daughter of God, it's good to see you back. Daughter of God, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. She says, this is so sad. It's neglect. Yes, it is very, very sad. Very, very sad. Positive Vibes Only, hello and welcome. Welcome to the channel. Good to see you tonight. Positive Vibes Only says, I grew up with emotionally cold parents, couldn't show any love to me, but could show other emotions like anger, blame, and name calling. Absolutely. You want to know why? Here's the $1 million reason why. Because it's easier to show anger, because some of that is fight or flight mode. So they're not really fully in control all the time with anger. Anger tends to be somewhat impulsive. So it's a little bit easier for them to spew and share emotions when they're angry. There's no forethought. There's no processing. There's no skill needed. Boom, kaboom. volcano. That's all they need. So anger is easier. Blame is judgmental. And that's a little bit easier too. And you also said name calling. Yeah, all three of those things do not require executive functioning. Being a good parent, being emotionally available, being emotionally mature requires executive functioning. It requires a stable amygdala, which is that emotional center of the brain. It requires neurological control. Anger, blame, and name calling does not. So that's why sometimes it's easier for parents to do that than it is to be the parent that they need to be. Thank you, Sigma Praxis Synergy. I appreciate you. This was my attempt at looking somewhat like I'm ready for tonight. Thank you for that. That's so sweet. Bree, don't beat yourself up. I'm always so glad when you're here. Bree 420, it's good to see you. Welcome. I'm going to put your other comment up there. And Bree, thank you for gifting us again with memberships. You gifted somebody else with a membership and then somebody else. So 2 people tonight. Thank you so much for that. That's so very kind. B, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back. B says, I'm going to leave that up there just for people to see. I think you're talking to Fifi LaFleur. All right, guys, bear with me as I'm scrolling. I'm pretty much behind here. Sean Hammer says, I no longer see it as a clinical issue, but rather a societal educational issue. Our education creates arrested development and infantilization. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't disagree. That is part of the battle, isn't it? Yeah, totally get it. Yeah, good point. Okay, let me keep moving. A and B says both of my parents had these issues. They divorced when we were very young babies. She emotionally withdrew from us. No hugs or kisses. She told us to handle our problems. He ran. They were cold. Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it something how fathers can be? Not trying to put you guys down in the chat box, those of you who are men, but let me just throw this out there. Dads have less responsibility than the mothers do. If you ask me, somebody correct me if I'm absolutely wrong. But my personal and professional view over the past few years of my life has been that mothers have a bigger load. Why? Mothers are supposed to be the educated ones. They are the nurturers. They are the loving ones. They are the compassionate ones. They are the ones who bring compassion and nurturing in with education and forethought and maturity. Dads work. They're hard workers too, some of them, the good dads. They work. They build their families. They contribute to the home. They get upset when their family is threatened. They provide security, right? But if mom starts, interestingly, kind of stepping back in her role, or she becomes emotionally avoidant, unavailable, or immature, it makes it so much easier for the dad to do the same. When there's a divorce, a breakup, some dads go way over there with a new woman, a new family. They play house over there while mom is at home with his children trying to raise them, right? So I always feel like dads do run A and B. They run, not all of them, not the good ones, but the ones who are, checkered. They have a pathology, a personality pathology. They run and they say, we're out of here. We're out of here. We don't want to deal with this. No way. So yes, it's just, it contributes to the abandonment, doesn't it? Yeah. Jeremy Robinson says, my mom treated the man that she married and dated better than she treated my siblings and I. Yes. I'm so sorry to hear that. Absolutely. A common dynamic with emotionally unavailable parents. Again, remember I said earlier, everything comes before you. You are second nature to them. Second on the priority list. The man they want is priority. The woman they want is priority. Their job is priority. Nothing else matters, right? Lil Johan says, man, I needed this episode. It's so very lonely. I feel like a mammal abandoned by reptile-like parents. Oh, I'm so sorry. Lil Johan, you've been sharing your story with us a little bit at a time in live chats. I'm so sorry that you have to deal with this. I'm going to give you some ideas as to what could be happening. Bear with me because I want to get through some more of these comments. All right. Louis Apaza, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you. I'm just going to put your comment on the screen. Laura Fit says, when pap and mommy are immature, you become their therapist. Yes, you're right. You get nothing. You get absolutely nothing. What did I do? I'm always hitting some button, guys. I don't know what it is. I always do something wrong every YouTube night that we have. That's true. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Okay, let me go back up because I accidentally hit the wrong button. I am so behind. Hey, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat and welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. Thief3, don't remember seeing you. Welcome to the channel. It's good to have you tonight. So glad you feel validated by this. That is awesome. The Good Glow says, surround yourselves with positive people who are supportive. Choose a therapist who is right for you. Stay present and allow yourself to feel. The healing will come in time. I very much agree with that. I very much agree with that. Thank you for saying that. Suga, oh my goodness, you're also new. Hello and welcome to the channel. It's good to have you tonight. Love that screen name. Amy999, hello and welcome. I'm glad to see you tonight. And I honestly don't blame you. I hate to be the one who says it's okay to be done with your family. But, if they're not a very good parent and they don't seem to be healthy for you, then you've got to figure out how to save your heart and mind. And sometimes walking away is the only thing that you have left, right? And it's okay if that's it. It may only be temporary as well. Thief3 says, my parents were immature. It's sad. My dad said did affect his life after cutting off for 3 years. Shaking my head. He only cares about himself. He's sick. I wouldn't be surprised. Have you ever asked yourself, is my dad a psychopath? Is he cold, callous, and unemotional? Is this more of like a steady, pervasive, chronic character that just doesn't shift no matter what? Sometimes it's good to ask those questions, right, guys? Kate M, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. Katie May, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Be true, be real, be loved. Hello and welcome. It's good to have you and welcome to the channel. You're also new. Yes, and isn't it so sister of me to say? And both of my brothers get on my last nerve. My older brother, okay, I don't know what, he's like a celebrity in my eyes. Even though we were both grown. We're both over the age of 35. He's almost 50, by the way. But I'm still like this, this sister who sees Tom Brokaw over there. I don't know. Somebody that you would just be like, oh my God. I still feel like that with him. My younger brother, I don't know what it is. He gets on my nerves. I really don't know what it is. We have a very different language. I love him, but we have a very different language. I don't know what the issue is. Somebody psychoanalyze this, Okay, Alive. It's good to see you. Welcome to the channel. Glad to have you tonight. Alive says, I'm glad you all are here, even though I've never met you. That's so awesome. That's the way I want you to feel, right? Because that's exactly the community that's been built on this channel, and we're still growing. We're still growing. All right, bear with me, guys. 1 or 2 more people, and then we will go back to the last piece of the content. There was somebody I wanted to... Man, I hit the wrong button, so I don't know where it went. Hold on, bear with me. Okay, I see it. Okay, Ann Pulser. Whoop, there you go. Ann Pulser says, my therapist is good, but she refuses to acknowledge that mother could harm her child. Yeah, sometimes it is a refusal, right? I'm sorry that that is the dynamic. Sometimes it is a refusal. Sometimes it's they are not trained enough to be able to see the forest, right? Like they're kind of blinded to the way that they think they're supposed to think, you know? And guess what? They may actually have a right perspective, and maybe in a sense, we could say, well, maybe it's not the way that you're trying to tell it to the therapist. You know, maybe the therapist doesn't believe your perception or something like that. We never really know, right, what a therapist is kind of pondering and thinking. So I don't want to minimize the therapist without being fair and saying sometimes they are on the right track, even when we disagree with them, you know? So you really do have to weigh what's going on here. Phil Bradley, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Yeah, there are a lot of new people in the chat. I'm going to put you up here, Sugar, because you are new. And you're saying, I'm going to read it. You're saying, I'm just glad that I found this community. I don't feel as alone. And I know that this type of treatment isn't normal. Really, really glad to hear that. That's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So glad you feel that way. Yeah. Be true, be real, be loved says when there's a toxic dynamic between parents and the children, they could literally become the best versions of themselves through each other. It's going to take a lot of accountability and maturity. 100% agree with that. Yes. And aside from accountability and maturity, self-awareness, right? Because they need to be able to look at themselves and see, how am I affecting my adult child here, my child, my adolescent? Okay, let's get back into the content. I'm going to give you something to think about because this is a dynamic that happens all the time. Okay. I'm going to give you two dynamics to think of. Have you guys ever heard of the psychological term cold mother syndrome? Have you ever heard of that? Cold mother syndrome. I'm going to put that in the chat box. Cold mother syndrome. Cold mother syndrome. Really what that is it's a mother who is like a refrigerator. She is ice cold. No emotion. No ability to empathize. There's a poverty of speech. She has nothing to say. And there's a poverty of emotion. Nothing's on the inside. She's cold as ice. That's what that means. And some people still refer to it in the field. Other people are like, nope, that doesn't exist. Okay, guys, bear with me. I'm trying to find a marker that you can see. There we go. I think we can use this. Okay. Cycle of abuse. Are you guys aware of what that looks like? There is, and I'm going to wrap up here in just a little bit. There is tension building. Am I doing this right? I think so. Incident. Reconciliation. Don't judge me on my spelling, guys. Calm. So this is a really bad cycle. Be gracious. Okay. Tension building. Here, let me tell you what this is. This is called the abuse cycle. Okay? And this is how emotionally immature parents and emotionally unavailable parents sometimes find themselves the creator of, if you will. They're the creator of the abuse cycle because something happens. And here's what it looks like. Something happens. There's tension building. The incident happens, right? Somehow reconciliation happens. And then everything is calm before it goes back to tension building. Now, let me give you an example of this. Let's say, for example, you're like my previous client. Tension building with an emotionally immature mother is this: name calling, judgments, hostility, passive aggressive behavior. This is tension building. We'll add one more in there. So passive aggressive behavior and criticisms. Okay. Tension building. See that? Just a little bit. I think you can see it just a little bit. Name calling, judgments, hostility, passive aggressive behavior, and criticism. Tension building. It's that stage. It's that time when the parent is in a mode of character. There is tension building between the two of you because of these things: name calling, judgments, criticisms, attitudes, passive aggressive behavior, sometimes text messages that are long and over the top, emails, phone calls, all of that. That's tension building. The incident that happens could be argument, police involved, family drama, abandonment, abandonment. Have you guys ever, I know you have, you've probably seen a word and you're like, I can spell that. You're spelling it all wrong. Incident, argument, police call, family drama, abandonment. They may even take you off the will, take you off the family, estate. That's an incident. They've done something. But then somewhere along the line, this unstable parent calls you. I'm sorry. I don't know what got into me. Sometimes you just know how to get on my nerves. Would you forgive me? Or sometimes they'll call you and say, are you watching American Warrior? Because I'm watching it now. Like nothing ever happened between the two of you. Why don't you watch American Warrior with me? Do you want me to come over? I can bring some popcorn. And you may still be angry, but you may say, yeah, sure. I'll be right there. Do you want ginger ale, Coca-Cola, or some wine? You may say, I'll take some wine. Maybe I'll get some ginger ale. Thank you, Mom. You're welcome, honey. I'll be right over. And she comes over with all this great stuff, and you guys just move along like nothing has ever happened, right? So the reconciliation is, forgiveness. Ignorance is bliss, right? Nothing ever happened. And I'm going to say, you kind of enter each other's lives again. Yeah. I'll show you how this looks just to give you a visual. There it is on the bottom. Woo, this is not good. There we go. Forgiveness, ignorance is bliss, and reconciliation. And you kind of re-enter each other's lives. It's calm now, right? What do you think is calm? Texting mom and dad, talking to mom and dad, going out for dinner with mom and dad, going on vacation with mom and dad. Everybody's laughing. Everybody's talking. Everybody is getting along. And guess what? What's going to happen in this very sad dynamic is it's going to happen again, where there's going to be that tension building, right? She'll get critical again. Dad will start calling you names and cursing you out, calling you out of your name and cursing and using profanity against you. Mom may start doing some things that are just totally inappropriate. And so then all of that builds tension between you guys until the next blow or the next incident, and something big happens. Maybe you decide to go no contact and don't speak to your mom and dad for a whole year. Next thing you know, mom's calling you and crying and saying she's sorry. Wants you back in her life. And what happens? You get back into her life. But then tension building is going to happen again when she starts criticizing and being judgmental and calling you names, and the list goes on. So this is the cycle of abuse. And it doesn't just happen between a man and a woman or people who are in a romantic relationship. It also happens within families. One last cycle let me slow down. One last cycle that you're going to want to know about. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's the drama triangle. And here's how this goes with the drama triangle. There's a victim, there's a rescuer, and there's a persecutor. So let's say, for example, your mom, we're going to use mom in this scenario. Mom is the one who is the victim. Why? Because you don't listen. You don't listen. You talk back. Right? You ignore her. The list goes on. Right? So she's the victim. Guess who you are? You're the persecutor. Why? Because you tell her she's wrong. Okay. You tell her she's wrong. You don't hold back. And one last one for the persecutor. You don't give in. Right? So mom sees herself as the victim. So this is mom. Mom sees herself as the victim. You as the child, she now sees you as the persecutor, the one who's pointing the fingers and judging and criticizing and being disrespectful. And who is the rescuer? Let's say it's your sister. What does the rescuer do? Tries to save things. Man, I hope you can say this. Tries to save things, right? Plays therapist. Drama triangle. Drama triangle. Mom, victim. Child, persecutor. And the rescuer is the therapist, plays the therapist. And this is another cycle. Mom feels she's the victim. Why? Because you don't listen to her. You don't do things like she wants you to do them. Her expectations are way up here. You're not meeting them. So you're the child who is wayward, rebellious, confrontational, right? And so that kind of pushes you into the role of the persecutor, the one that's pointing fingers, the one who's doing all the things to make the mother the victim. And your sister jumps in the middle of that and says, how dare you do that to mom? In a sense, mom sees your sister as the rescuer, the one that kind of swoops in and takes over. And sometimes that makes things a lot worse. This is a cycle also that you're going to want to keep in mind. Last piece of this whole conversation, guys, how does this impact you? You may find yourself needing lots of validation about the kind of parent that you have. It's one thing to believe that your parent is one way, but it's another to have that strong validation that they are that way. Does that make sense? The parent can appear a certain way to you and you say, my mom, my dad is awful, right? Their character is off. They have no morals. They have no boundaries. I don't want anything to do with them, right? You may feel that way, but deep down on the inside, you may just need that little bit of validation that you are not wrong in what your eyes are seeing. And so that strong need for validation can be there, and you may carry that for a very long time. I'm sure this channel has a way of validating you guys. A lot of you have told me that this channel is validating that, oh my God, this is me. And your heart seeks that most likely, because now you recognize it's not just your eyes that are seeing this, but now it's Tamar's eyes that are seeing this. It's the field of psychology that is seeing this. And it's everybody else in the community on this channel who sees it too. So we couldn't all not be correct, right? So you may seek that strong validation. The other piece of this is you may show maladaptive patterns of behaving, maladaptive patterns of emotional pursuits, right? So you may want certain relationships, but you're not going about it in the right ways. There may be, voids that these adult children are trying to fill. And their way of existing in the world may show some maladaptive behaviors. I'm not listening to authority. I don't like to be over there. I'm not going to go over there like you tell me. There is some research, that suggests that for adult children who have come from really shaky childhoods and really shaky family systems, they also have a hard time respecting authority, meaning police, judges, people who have control over, their everyday life. even landlords, they get treated a certain way. Everybody kind of gets treated a certain way by some adult children who have come from really unstable households. They develop over time a maladaptive system of behaving in the world. Sometimes their mind is wayward. Sometimes they've got behavioral issues. Sometimes they become narcissists and sociopaths themselves. They get themselves arrested and they are put in jail. They are in relationships where there's domestic violence. I mean, the research is there that having parents like this is not a good thing. You may also notice that you have kind of like a repression of emotions. There's a repression of emotions. You push everything down, and when you feel things rising to the top, you just push it down even more, You know how it is when you're trying to break a box apart? I do it all the time because I don't like the bulkiness of boxes. You put the box on the floor, you step on a corner of it, you step on another corner of it, and you're just trying to get the box to collapse, right? And so sometimes that is repression of emotions. You're stepping on all those emotions, trying to make sure that you shove it down. You want to flatten it out because you don't want to give it any wings or any life. It's too painful. So you repress everything. Then there's displacement. I take my internal pain and I displace it onto Aunt BB over there. I take my internal pain and I displace it onto my therapist over there. My therapist is an idiot. Reminds me of my mother. Or I'm going to marry someone, we're going to be happy, but I'm also going to displace some of my anger onto him in the form of envy and jealousy because I never had opportunities like my husband does. I had a client say that one time also. Really, there's a tendency to attract emotionally unavailable partners when you've had a parent like this. There's a tendency, according to research, to attract unavailable relationship partners and friends because of the kind of parent that you had. It's almost like your mind or your heart is so conditioned to that and you're so used to it that you find that in other areas of your life that's really difficult. You may also develop what we call a schema that is negative to all relationships. A schema is kind of a way of thought. It's kind of like your way of thinking and processing things. And so sometimes we can have a schema that is wayward or that is off or imbalanced. And so sometimes if you are struggling with negativity that comes from you, right? You may be talking very negative to yourself. That's because you have a schema that is kind of bent towards a negative way of viewing life. All relationships are bad. You can't trust anyone, right? And that can be very detrimental. You may doubt your own intelligence, your own perspective, and your own reality. You have a parent like this, and not too many people believe parents are like this. You may start to go inward, right? You kind of implode, and you may find yourself saying, I don't know if I'm seeing the truth because nobody seems to understand my struggle. Nobody seems to understand me. And lastly, you may struggle in cultivating healthy relationships all the way around. Work relationships, family relationships, relationships with a romantic partner, your therapist relationship. You may have a really hard time cultivating those relationships because you never had an example from mom. You never had an example from dad. This is a lot, right, guys? I feel like we've crammed a lot into one live chat. These kinds of parents are absolutely unbelievable. And you may be wondering, will they ever change? I don't know if that's true. I don't know if they can. I don't have a lot of hope that these kind of parents can change. As they age, they may get better. Research suggests that as people age, they become less problematic, less argumentative. So maybe there's some hope there. But I really do think that all of these things that we talked about tonight is part of a character disorder. It's part of a character pathology. Consider the difference between a mental illness and a character pathology. A mental illness is something that can be treated with medication, therapy, eating right, getting the right therapy, getting the right education and treatment. A character pathology, way more difficult because you're trying to change how they think, how they behave, how they see the world, how they perceive you. And it really is a chronic pervasive pattern of behavior. It is rigid. It is very rigid. So you're going to have a really hard time trying to change it. So, you really have to do your research and look at the personality and the temperament of the parent that you have and ask yourself, can I see them changing? You never know. Maybe faith and hope they will. But I tend to be more negative when it comes to these kind of parents. I do not see them changing. I don't. A lot of times they don't think they are wrong. They don't have empathy. They have no guilt and they have no shame. And when you have no guilt, when you have no shame, and when you don't think you're wrong, why should you change? And so I don't know. I just don't know. I'm going to put it that way. I don't know if I believe that they can change. All right, guys, let me read a few more comments and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Space Monk Tarot says, I believe God gave me these dysfunctional parents to learn to come out from beneath and to learn how to rely on myself and God alone. I love that. That's such a positive reframing of that. And if you are leaning on the faith and the religious perspective that all things are predestined, then all things, including the pain in your life, is predestined, right? It's like God writing the story. And so he's writing it from beginning to end. And so Space Monk Tarot, I don't disagree with that. Sometimes that is the dynamic, but it can be very, very hard for people to swallow that too, right? Some people may feel like, why would God give me a parent like this? Just to punish me? What is this, right? But if you believe in God and you believe in the faith-based perspective of all of this, we only get a fraction of who God is, right? And so it's going to take a lot of time maybe for you to hear why this has been given to you. Other people don't believe it at all. So I totally get that perspective too. Shannon Duncan, hello and welcome. I'm glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Shannon says, you are absolutely wrong. Men are all of those things and more. Yeah, I mean, for both parents, right? We're not going against men in this live chat. Maybe I said something about fathers and how they are. See it as an equal thing across the board. I just believe that fathers, if you're referring to this, and I've seen this clinically, that sometimes fathers, once the mother steps out, the father is not always willing to jump in and be the dad he needs to be. Sometimes he sees that as an exit sign for himself, right? Okay. MNL Odell, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. MNL Odell says, someone raised all of these emotionally unavailable men. They need to be accountable. Well, that is true too. That is true too. Sometimes the parents are to blame. Petite Sophisticate, hello and welcome back. Good to see you. Petite Sophisticate says, my mom confessed to me, that her mother didn't raise her. It blew me away. It made me feel so sad for her. Absolutely. Yep. Isn't it sad? My late uncle, my family has had so much loss in it over the past few years. My grandmother passed away in 2020. My aunt passed away a year before 2020. So that would have been 2019. Then my grandmother passed away so many months later in 2020. And then her brother, my uncle, passed away a year or two after that. And he was my Uncle Sam. And what I found out about him when my grandmother passed away, she kept the adoption papers such a secret. I didn't even know. Nobody in my family knew. Nobody in my family knew that my Uncle Sam, that he was adopted by his grandparents and raised by them because his mother wasn't psychologically and mentally capable of raising him. So my great grandmother's parents raised my uncle, even though they were in close proximity. They lived near each other. My family had no idea. I didn't know. My mother didn't know. My grandmother didn't say anything. She kept those papers a secret. But isn't it interesting how, secrets can come up, Petite Sophisticate, and it changes the scope of things, doesn't it? When I found those adoption papers, when I was going through my late grandmother's belongings, I was shocked. I was no more good. I couldn't believe it. Flute Bay, hello and welcome to the channel. It's good to have you tonight. I'm going to put your comment up there on the screen just so that people can see this. Okay, Live Life, thank you so much. I'm going to start your comment for the super chat. You know I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys for the constant support, and you're very welcome. It is my pleasure to be on here with you. All right, I'm going to keep moving. That's so nice of you, Live Life. Thank you. Nanabuka, am I saying that right? Kawita, I hope I'm saying that right. If not, please forgive me. Hello and welcome to the channel. It's good to have you. It's good to have you. I'm so glad to see new people tonight. That's so kind, Nancy. Thank you so much for that. I starred your comment. Empress T, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat, and welcome to the channel. Empress T says, my mother-in-law wore a shirt that said, from the bottom of my heart, I don't give a F at our engagement first sit down dinner. Oh my God. Okay, you ready for this? I wish you would have come to me. I wish you would have known I existed, because I would have given you all permission to be like, Mom, you're out of here. Get up, and you're not allowed to sit here. If you want to be at this wedding, take that shirt off, right? And if she refused to leave and still wanted to wear that shirt, I think I would have called the police on her. Please take this immature person out of my dinner, out of my wedding, because that's giving off negative energy that we don't need. It's an immature way to express your emotions, and it's showing off in front of everybody. I would have been so livid. Oh my God, I would have been so livid. Express T, you got to tell me how you felt. Really, because that would have sent me over the edge. My friend Shamita says, this is an incredible community. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you so much for saying that. And I very much agree. You guys are making it that way. You make it easy to make this an incredible community. Anime Girl 16091. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. Oh, Sean Hammer, I'm so sorry. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Hang in there. You know, everybody has to go through something, right? But I hope you're doing okay. So it's really good to see you tonight. Okay, let me keep moving. Yeah, Nancy says, never heard of cold mother syndrome. Yeah, Google it. It's like a layman way of referring to mothers who are very, very negative and emotionally unavailable. Be true, be real, be loved. Thank you so much for the super chat. And you know I appreciate you as well. Thank you for that. It's good to see you, and good to see you in the chat box. I haven't seen you on here before, so thank you and good to see you. Hope you come back to a live chat. Vosux. Ooh, I messed that up really bad. I'm so sorry, but welcome to the channel. It's good to see you. Let me see. She or he says, I have a madre, which is a mother in Spanish, who's a narcissistic personality disorder, covert, sociopathic, never laughs, always impulsive, quickly violent, happily no contact. I understand, totally understand. Here's what's interesting. She may not be a narcissistic personality. She may also not be a sociopath. She could be a schizoid. Have you ever heard of that? Schizoid. I'm going to put it right here in the chat box. Oh, girl. All right, schizoid. A schizoid. Schizoid personality, very bland, very blank face affect, unemotional, turned off, detached, cold. You know, sometimes very paranoid, suspicious, and distrustful of everybody else. It's an interesting kind of personality. I'll try to post my video that I did on schizoid in the community section or the comment section once we sign off, if you want to see what that is. And I'm so sorry you have to deal with a mom like that. I totally get it. Kate M says, you just can't use blame as a way of shutting down people. You say you love them no matter what you want. Yeah, absolutely. Agree. All right, let me make sure I'm getting everyone, at least most of you. Yes, you're welcome, A and B. So glad. She says, my siblings, doctors, and friends are saying that I've changed and seem stranger now. I am thanks to you and my counselor survival. That's wonderful. That's amazing. And it's so good to have a therapist who gets you right. So I'm so glad you have that. And, you know, you almost have to weigh this. Are they saying that I changed because it's a bad change and I'm really not what I think I am? Or are they saying that I changed because I'm no longer being ran over by them and told what to do and dealing with their abuse? Maybe that's what it is, you know? So hopefully that is what it is. They've got to get used to it, right? Because there's a new you in town. That's the way I see that. Lil Johan, so glad to hear that. Thank you so much for that. Yes, go ahead and replay this because there was a lot that we talked about. All right, I'm going to do one more comment. I'm looking for a good comment. Miss Janine, I can't go off without seeing you and saying hello, hello, and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Glad to have you. She says, when I was young, the cycle of abuse followed me through until my daughter was born. Financially, they were the best. Emotional love slack. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, your parents, yeah. Yeah, that's awful. That is awful. Okay. The Good Glow, you're my last one tonight. We're going to end on you. The Good Glow says, I've been there more times than I can count. Once I learned that I am a priority, it was best for me to go no contact to begin the healing process. Can't heal in the place that tried to break you. I am going to star that comment. That is the best thing I've seen in the chat box on healing tonight. There were a couple other people that talked about healing. So this is a great way to kind of top it off. I very much agree. Sometimes you have to remove yourself from that damaging environment, that damaging relationship, no matter what your heart says. Because, you know, I have a couple of clients now who are going through situations where they are being domestically abused. And it's clearly domestic violence. And the one thing that I tell each and every one of them, you have to love you first. You have to love you first. And you have to love you enough to look at what is wrong and say, I'm out of here. I still love you. I still care about you. I wish it would work. It's not working. So what do I have to do? I have to make the conscious decision. I have to put in the conscious effort to get out of here, because this is not what I'm supposed to be living every day of my life. Right, guys? So glad to have you. Hope this was helpful. I will see you guys next weekend. I hope you have a wonderful week. Stay tuned, because I may post a video on Tuesday about the parasitic lifestyle of these kind of parents. So you're probably going to want to come back and see that. All right, guys, have a wonderful Saturday and Sunday. Good night.